The second thing I want to bring up is violence within the justice system. We often look to the justice system to solve violence, but particularly with Indigenous people, the justice system perpetrates violence. And I want to read this very quickly. It's about Kinew James, who was incarcerated. I'm just going to read, some of it comes from her family. The family of Kinew James hopes the inquest into her death will take into account everything about her treatment during the nearly 15 years she spent in Canada's correctional institutions. James died of an apparent heart attack in 2013 while in the custody of the Regional Psychiatric Centre in Saskatoon. An inquest into her death began on Monday. But the inquest, and then it talks about what happened before. So I'm going to read this part. Before that January day, she suffered from several ailments, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, and high cholesterol. Her brother Cecil James and those not pre-existing conditions when she was sentenced for manslaughter nearly 15 years ago. Cecil also said her sister's treatment inside the prison, specifically the time she spent in a specialized confinement away from prisoners, needs to be taken into account. In 2013, Kinew's family said she complained of chest pains in the days leading up to her death. Inmates in neighboring cells also alleged staff ignored her calls. An investigation into death already found a nurse took too long to call a code blue after finding her unresponsive in a cell. Kinew was nearing the end of a 15-year sentence for manslaughter when she was transferred to Saskatoon. The 35-year-old had been transferred from the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Ontario after speaking out against the guards who she said were smuggling in goods in exchange for sexual favors, because we're talking about sexual violence. And I share that because I'm concerned about this kind of these misrepresentation of the luxury of prisons when we know there's a lot of sexual violence that occurs in prisons, particularly concerning for me because a lot of women end up there as a result of indirectly relating to violence they're experiencing in intimate partner relationships that make them make choices to avoid violence that have them end up being incarcerated. I know that the Elizabeth Fry Society did a report. In Manitoba right now, 85% of incarcerated persons are Indigenous. Women who have, had a life of gender-based violence are now incarcerated in places where systems are perpetrating gender-based violence. What's being done about that? I just feel like we don't talk about that.
Today, one of my investigators is in a federal prison for women, speaking with women about their experiences of sexual violence and pathways of criminalization. And so part of our investigation is looking at how survivors of sexual violence are criminalized in different contexts that it emerges from. And I'll just say, on prison conditions, many people have a relationship with the person who's been incarcerated. There's families that have that context, and if somebody's mistreated in prison, it distracts from the ability to heal. So safe human rights in prisons are important, and I think that's part of our stance too.